It's the internet. You're busy. Let's do this for February 8th, 2024. For the next hour or so, let me help you sort through the world of gaming on Game S Mornings Live with me, Jeff Grubb. Today, Disney is investing $1.5 billion in Epic to make a next-gen Club Penguin just without the penguins. But first, please join me in welcoming today's co-host to Game S Mornings. It's Jan Ochoa, everybody. Jan, how are you doing?
I am feeling great, Jeff Grubb. I'm feeling good. I had one of those moments where you are maybe under the influence of substances. I'm going to say happiness, and then you just see the grand calculus of the universe.
Sure.
And then where you fit inside the universe, Grubb, and then it just like the Switch sound effect, you click into place.
Was this happening in DaVinci Resolve, or was it like were you working out, or what?
No, this was just happening in my mind palace as I was fighting my demons. And then embracing my demons as well.
The foam comes out of their bodies, Jan.
Grubb, I think you know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna write a self-help book. I'm gonna become like a life coach for gamers specifically.
Okay, yeah, gamer coach, but not in gaming. Just how to be better people, or what?
It's gonna be hard
tough.
to make
it's
it improve
tough. It's an uphill climb right there.
But yes. Reach out to me, folks, and I will reach back to you.
Around.
Only solely with consent, though.
Of course. Jan, how's this week going for you? It's been we have a lot going on. We're busy, and then you're also like editing that thing for Dan that's going to debut today. Were you able to get everything done? You feel like you're staying on top of things?
Everything's done. I realized, and maybe we'll talk about this on the dump truck later, but I do miss editing video for as much as I enjoy all of our live to tape stuff, our podcasting. I do enjoy slicing and dicing.
Unless it involves a train, of course. Right, yeah.
That's just a secret at this point.
Yeah, that's just for you.
My psyop is that it's been posted this whole time. I just didn't tell anyone, and they have to go find it.
It's like Frog Fractions 3. It's out there somewhere on Steam.
Yes, I've been. Maybe if you ride the Amtrak in San Francisco, it is actually on a USB, and I'm waiting for someone to find it.
Yeah. Don't pick up the wrong USB though. You'll find some really messed up stuff.
Yes. Don't do that one.
Just the Jan USB. All right. Let's see. We should probably explain what we do here most weekdays. I, Jeff Grubb, will help piece your gaming life back together. That includes breaking news and maybe even some of our own original reporting. For all these topics, I'll get the input of a bona fide expert who will make me look smart. If you are watching live on Twitch, welcome. You can always listen to the show later on podcast feeds by searching for Game S Mornings or find the RSS on giantbomb.com. You can also catch the show later with chapters and timestamps on YouTube. Hello, YouTube. All right, we have a lot to get into, so let's start the morning mess with Disney invests $1.5 billion in Epic Games and announces major Fortnite partnership. This comes from Christopher Dring at gamesindustry.biz. The Walt Disney Company has invested $1.5 billion to acquire an equity stake in Epic Games and has announced plans for a major collaboration with Fortnite. Epic Games CEO Tim Sweeney is the controlling shareholder of Epic and will continue to maintain control of the board following the close of this transaction, Epic told gamesindustry.biz. Disney and Epic described the project as an open, persistent social universe. It will be a games experience, but also offer the ability for fans to watch, shop, and engage with content, characters, and stories from across Disney's portfolio, which includes Pixar, Star Wars, Marvel, and the Avatar brands. Our exciting new relationship with Epic Games will bring together Disney's beloved brands and franchises with the hugely popular Fortnite in a transformational new games and entertainment universe, said Disney CEO Bob Iger. There's more to this. There's more quotes, including Bob Iger being like, who knew people were playing video games? Here's the Bob Iger said, and I wrote down, Bob Iger said insanely, when I saw Gen Z and Gen Alpha and millennials, the amount of time they were spending in terms of total media screen time on video games, it was stunning, equal to what they spend on TV and movies. The conclusion I reached, we have to be there. Fucking Robert, what's going on over there, buddy?
Why, Grubb? Why do they let these people have a lot of money?
I don't know. He should not have as much money as he has.
That's that. I'm glad you added insane to that, because that is absolutely insane of Bob Iger to just realize this.
Yeah, to kind of be telling on yourself a little bit.
Grub, do you think there are CEOs out there, and the answer is yes, that assume that and haven't ever looked at the numbers to how big the video game audience is? They just still think it's a bunch of nerds?
Yeah, probably. I bet Bob Chapek was just like eating video games, not even understanding what you're supposed to do with them. So
Oh my
at least
God.
they do. Yeah, they have the better Bob in there now. He's like at least like looking at numbers, being like, oh, people are playing these. That's interesting.
They realize the product they already made is catered mostly towards children. So you would assume, let's attack the other things that kids are into. Video games.
Yeah, I think they think about it along those lines, and they don't go very far down that line of thought. They're like, well, we have the things they care about, the characters, so just put out a fucking mobile game and call it the end of the day.
Is Bob Iger going to suddenly realize, oh my God, the Gen Z, Gen Alpha, Millennials, and Gen X, they all read books. We should make books.
It feels like it, yeah, for sure. So in terms of what this looks like, Jan, we don't fully know, but there is a couple of like little tidbits here. This is going to be a Fortnite expansion experience, something that stands alongside Fortnite, like those other recent games that Epic released. At least that seems like how it's going to take form. And then they also had that tagline of, and they mentioned it there in a quote of like, of game, create, watch, and shop. It was like like those 4 words. Create's probably not the right word, but it was like basically like 4 things, including shop. So it's like sounds like PlayStation Home. It sounds like the metaverse that they've been talking about forever. That they said it'll have interoperability with Fortnite. Of course, it will. If you buy a character in one of these games, it's likely going to work in Fortnite. Are they going to give Mickey Mouse a gun? Who knows? But I see how a lot of this stuff makes sense. Part of me, and maybe this is cynical, and maybe it's because they haven't shown me anything to care about yet. I'm like, you're announcing this thing, and the only thing I'm imagining is the day it gets shut down. Like I can, like in 5 years when no one cares about this thing anymore, and it just like quietly closes, or people go like, oh damn, they're closing that. That I feel like I can like grand opening, grand closing is what I'm like seeing here. But maybe I'm being a bit too cynical. I don't know. What do you think?
I think we've kind of had that approach and expectations even when we were into it, Scout, I swear to God, with something like Fortnite, assuming and just looking at the doomsday clock, waiting for it to end at some time. Yet Fortnite, in spite of itself even, and in spite of greater gamer culture. Hold one second.
Yeah, no problem. Yeah, Scout sees something. Yeah, this also reminds people in chat, Nikki saying like Disney Infinity. This is reminding me of that as well. And I mean, until we see something that people really care about, I have a hard time seeing this as anything beyond one of those failed efforts. What separates this from any of those?
I'm not 100% sure just yet, because I feel like, and I think we had this conversation earlier this week on the Bombcast, where companies kind of adjusting to the trends and making something like a games as a service or any of these type of social hubs, VR hubs, whatever, that the audience is not explicitly asking for, that's when it tends to fail or just not hit the mark. And I think that is where I may join you, Grubb, initially of, all right, I do feel a little bit cynical, and I don't know who this is for, what this is for just yet. I think maybe because of the monetary investment, I hope and I want it to work out. But yeah, I just also start to think about how precious Disney is about all of their IP. And does Mickey Mouse hold a gun? Like, how can you edit Mickey Mouse and like the Mickey Mouse Club to fit to a social hub, right? Can anyone just be Mickey Mouse?
I mean, presumably, by Disney investing $1.5 billion into Epic, that's got to lubricate that process a little bit. Like what Jan's talking about, everybody, is games like, Star Wars Jedi Survivor is a real headache for a studio like Respawn to make over at EA that has to like get everything run by the creative visions group over at Lucasfilm. And And that stuff is very laborious and it's very challenging. And Disney's a real stickler about all those things when it comes to their characters, probably because they believe it's for good reason. They think that's what keeps the long-term value of those characters. But, if you are putting $1.5 billion into Epic, presumably you can have like offices, people right in the Epic office to talk to that are working on these things every day. Like this is like $1.5 billion is in exclusion to them being like, okay, we're going to go put $1.5 billion into making our own games or into partnering with a bunch of other studios across all these things or doing something with Roblox or whatever. It's like, no, we are all in on Epic. So if we're all in, let's actually make sure that those pain points are solved and ready to go. I hope they're thinking about that. I know they like, John Drake's over there. It seems like he's very much, behind a big part of this deal. And he's very, very proud of it. He's the kind of guy that understands those issues. So I'm like, they're probably going to be able to solve those aspects. It's just, when it comes to Disney, there's a lot of reason to think that they will abandon this because they've done that with gaming every time up till now. Maybe the $1.5 billion changes that though.
Yeah, and this isn't just because John Drake is a friend of the website. I also trust John Drake
he knows what he's doing.
To see this through and everything. The other aspect, Grubb, that I'm thinking is I feel like this may not be Disney readjusting their strategies. What is going on? Is there a ghost?
Just Bob Iger's waiting outside your house right now.
But we've seen how, and I was just talking about how Disney's been precious about their IP, but at the same time, we've seen how much they're willing to squeeze their IP dry with all these Star Wars spinoffs, the MCU spinoffs, that I think maybe they're expanding the strategy to not necessarily squeeze the juice out of everything, but to see what else is potentially there with all of their IP put together. Like, hey, maybe we should see what we can do in some type of Disney social hub. We already get Disney adults coming to the parks, all of the parks, way too often. Let's see how we can capture them virtually.
I wonder about the quality of these games, though, Jan, because we're coming out of a period there where we had Lethal Company on Steam, and then we had Pal World pop off, and those things, the varying quality or whatever, but they are very popular and caught on. And then meanwhile, over at Fortnite, still very popular in the core game, but they had a couple of other games that were part of their new initiative, like that basically what is Lego Minecraft, essentially. They finally did it. They made a Lego Minecraft game. It should be huge. Maybe it is. But that one, I thought that was the one that would really take off, and I don't hear anyone ever talking about that anymore. That does not mean it's not popular. That happens all the time. Maybe some huge audience is playing it that I never hear from. But what I have heard is many people who had high hopes on these games and the rocket racing and the other one that I can't remember. That like no one really likes these things. They're at least no one's too fond of them. Not really. Everyone's just ready to go back and play real Fortnite if they're going to Fortnite at all. So right now the track record isn't great that they're able to take these ideas and expound on them and be like, well, obviously Lego Minecraft, that should work. I know that a lot of people are like, well, no, I jumped into Pal World and immediately had more fun with that than I ever did with Lego Minecraft. I'm just going to keep calling it that.
Yeah, it seems more impossible than ever to predict where gamers are at.
Yes, for sure.
Hence why I'm going to help them, Grubb.
Oh, okay. Help them out here.
Exactly. My self-help book, we're going to target them, and then I sell that target to the big companies. This is where you get cut a check from both sides.
Yeah, you got to play both sides, Jan.
This is B to B to B. Me.
B to B to J. This is not going to be a quick flash in the pan at the very least. They will spend years trying to make this make sense. And really, I think it'll come down to the quality of the experience. And like, I think like one tier can succeed. Like, okay, people are actually playing these games, and that is a success on its own. They're spending money on these games. Even if it's like, that Lego thing, I'm sure a lot of people are playing it. It probably does make financial sense so far, and they could probably get something similar here. Whether or not they are like able to have this persistent world that they're talking about, that where people shop in and consume content in, that's like still to be seen. They could probably, Fortnite has had some success with that stuff with concerts and things like that.
Yeah.
But I just like, is it going to be a whole new tier, like a whole new way of doing that as opposed to Disney Plus or going to the movies or watching cable television? Probably not. But hey, they're trying and they have an idea here. And again, a lot of money is invested. What do you think? Like, what do you think we get out of this first? Do you just think we get like a pretty standard like social hub, or do they have like a video game ready to go?
If anything, I think we get more Disney oriented skins. Maybe you remake the parks and like you have some type of interactive experience like that.
Yeah, that would probably be very popular.
Maybe the Fortnite map be shifts again and gets crafted around some more popular Disney worlds. Like maybe you have part of it be like Buzz Lightyear themed, and then a different part of it is like Moana themed. You can easily see this being used and spun off to start promoting future movies, future shows as well. Like, hey, you need an ice world where, well, there's Elsa and the whole crew. And then like part of your Fortnite quest is to reassemble Olaf or something.
And you're like, you can't just see it like when it comes to like what happens outside of like the Fortnite bubble, like the sort of the orbit around Fortnite. A battle royale that's aimed at kids that does have like 100 kids dropping down in the Magic Kingdom, and maybe they're not using like guns, but they're using some other like projectile device to be more family friendly, and that gets them in the ecosystem, that gets them into Disney stuff, and it's a win-win for everybody involved. You could begin piecing these things together pretty quickly to be like, oh, this is them synergizing on all these different aspects of what they have going on here.
It's interesting you say bubble grub, because sometimes I think of both of these, Disney and Fortnite, as two gigantic specific bubbles.
Yeah,
and I wonder,
wells of their own. Yeah.
100%. So I wonder, do these brands conflict with each other at all? Like, does the super heavy Fortnite player absolutely abhor Disney and vice versa, right? And I wonder where and how they intend to get those people, those groups to mix.
Yeah, I think that for when it comes to Fortnite, the audience has been trained enough to be like, this is just like Funko Pops. You're going to get skins for popular things here. So expect more of that stuff. And they've kept doing more and more of that stuff. And the crossovers into other forms of media have been massive and seemingly in no way rejected. And maybe at worst ignored by people who don't care about that stuff. And it's like, well, clearly that is almost a good sign that people feel that they can ignore it, because that means this world of Fortnite and this world of like what Epic is doing over there is big enough to house all these things simultaneously. I think I think they're right about that to a point. I think maybe if my tone here is coming across with like a negative connotation, I think it's that I am seeing that $1.5 billion, meaning that Disney is going to make fewer what I consider like traditional video games, things that I would be more excited about than this necessarily. But it doesn't mean that necessarily either. That's just a knee-jerk reaction, and we'll have to wait and see. All right. Nintendo says it will overcome challenges of generational transition with unique propositions. This is from Tom Ivan at VGC. Nintendo has said it's more important than ever to offer consumers unique propositions in order to stand out in an increasingly competitive marketplace. During a Q&A session following Nintendo's financial results briefing on Wednesday, the company was asked what risks it's especially mindful of as it looks to build on the success of its dedicated gaming platforms and its expanding IP business. Since launching in March 2017, the Switch has sold over 139 million units. Only 2 other dedicated systems have sold better, blah, blah, blah. Then they go on to say, we approach our business every day with a profound sense of urgency, Nintendo President Shuntaro Furukawa told investors. The generational transition of platforms and the dedicated gaming console business is never easy. We have experienced significant challenges following successful platforms multiple times, so we never consider our current situations to be totally secure. Nintendo says it will overcome challenges of generational transition by trying to offer up those aforementioned unique propositions. What those are, obviously they're not saying, but I think this kind of goes back to something that we all know about what the Switch 2 is going to look like, right? It's at the very least, they're going to have some little feature in there that they're going to market as being very important, whether or not it actually is all that important, right? They've always done that, and they're probably going to come back to that again, right?
100%.
I think what like we can mostly take away from here is maybe lessons for like what the future is going to have to look like for all these companies, maybe except for Sony. I think people are very happy with the PlayStation just being the PlayStation. And honestly, they're probably happy with the Switch being the Switch. So maybe this is just a lesson for Microsoft where, you know, they didn't stand out, and the Xbox Series X and S kind of have like, oh, okay, it's a console, and it's a console that's a little bit more affordable, and there's no other really differentiating factor. So it's all going to come down to the exclusives and the games. And it's like, I think Microsoft learned that lesson pretty quickly in this generation, and that's like behind a lot of what is happening with them, where like they're looking ahead to maybe shifting things up next time around and trying to do something that is a little bit more different so that they can have something to actually market. And that usually has worked for Nintendo, even when it's like not worked as well as the Wii. Like the Wii is obviously the prime example. Hey, you got the Waggle controls. This is for anybody. Come play it. And I suppose the Switch is the other prime example. But I always point like to the new 3DS of like, hey, we got the nub and the eye tracking here, so like you don't have to worry about the like trying to get the 3DS in the perfect spot so the 3D actually works. And it's like small features like that go a long way towards making people want to upgrade. And so Nintendo continues to focus on that. Do you think there's any risk, Jan, of us getting to a point where it's like, or Nintendo getting to a point where they're like, oh, we are so worried about our unique propositions that they're going to upend what worked about the Switch?
I think that's a legitimate fear to have. The part that I don't want to say rubs me the wrong way about this news story is the quote about Nintendo products not being daily necessities. And I kind of prefer them to not be a daily necessity and something that I willingly seek out versus something I feel like I have to check. So I hope they don't fumble the bag here this way, because even seeing this headline makes me feel some type of way where I kind of want Nintendo to just trust Nintendo rather than try and adhere to whatever market conditions, because it seems like they make their own conditions this whole time.
That's interesting. You're right. Like Furukawa's right that they have absolutely fumbled the bag previously.
Yeah.
But I've never got the sense that Nintendo really thought about that all too much. Like it always just like, well, no, we're doing this because we're Nintendo, and we're just going to go out there. And yeah, sometimes it really has messed up. But I think it's always in the end they were able to wrap back around and make it something that was their strength again. Becoming mindful of that process and being like, we want to avoid the attempt where we drop the bag and instead just jump right to the good idea. It's like, well, maybe some magic might be lost in there. Kind of just maybe keep doing things the Nintendo way. And maybe that means there will be some stumbles, but I think also it could mean some magic. Now, all that said, I do want them to play it safe. I want them to play it very safe with this next hardware. I just want my Switch 2 to be a Switch, and I want to keep playing games the way I've been playing on that thing, because I've been very happy with it for going on 7 years. And and all things considered, I would keep playing my Switch, if a certain handful of games didn't start feeling very old on it. So let's keep it that way.
Yeah, I don't need RGB lights beaming off of it. I don't need I would like an OLED screen though.
Oh yeah,
do that.
Please
That. Like, I don't need anything fancy or funky with it. We're good. Unless Furukawa, you want to add a watch to it.
The watch, would the watch be like living inside the Switch 2 and you could like pull it out and strap it on like a slap bracelet sort of thing? Or is it like, no, you have a separate dock for that and it goes on your nightstand at night? Or what are you envisioning?
Different dock entirely. Like, I think the only communication you have is like when you like put them over together, like a Power Rangers Morpher, a Kamen Rider type of Morpher type of thing.
Yeah.
I just think, okay, and I know what you said, I don't want a daily necessity, except for a watch for Furukawa.
I want a watch that like has like needles that like go into the back of my wrist and can like tell what I'm eating and
exactly,
like take my blood pretty frequently.
I want to see Dr. Mario. Dr. Mario has to fix me.
Our healthcare system is now run by Nintendo. It's a true nightmare situation there.
Just take pills.
Yeah, here, I'm gonna chuck some pills at you. Like, okay, all right. Why are you playing that music? All right. Well, last headline before the break. This month's Nintendo Direct could be a partner showcase. It's claimed. This is from Andy Robinson at VGC. Nintendo's regular February Nintendo Direct live stream will be a partner direct this year. It is claimed. That's according to the Nate the Hate podcast. Shout out to Nate the Hate, a show which regularly breaks stories in the games industry, which suggests Nintendo could use its next direct to highlight remaining third-party Switch content before the expected imminent announcement of a successor console. He says, and this is Nate, I'm going into the first Nintendo Direct of this year with the expectation that it's going to be a partner direct. I don't think Nintendo will host a general direct this February. I think they're going to do the third parties instead. And elsewhere, he sounded even more confident about that. So, and Nate usually knows what he's talking about, especially if he's saying it publicly. He's very hesitant to say stuff publicly unless he knows. In which case, it's like, okay, what was the bet I made with Mike about Metroid Prime 4? Pretty sure I'm going to have to owe him on that. Pretty sure.
Oh, boy.
Pretty sure I just lost that one. Listen, if this is what it is, it makes a lot of sense. We are at the end of the Switch's life. They are looking ahead to what they're going to be doing with the Switch successor. And a Switch partner showcase could have all those games, and then Nintendo could still talk about the Princess Peach game and Mario versus Donkey Kong and a handful of other things they have going on. The 1,000-Year Door remaster, and they'll be just happy like having those in trailers and in tweets, and then they will do a real direct when they're ready to talk about the Switch 2. When you lay it out like that, Jan, it all just sounds kind of right?
Yeah, I'm trying to think if there's like any indie darlings that have made their way onto like PC or other consoles that could weasel their way onto the Switch, or that would warrant like being part of a big announcement like this. Hades 2, give me Hades 2, Nintendo. Help push it across the finish line.
Hades 2 early access is supposed to still come this year. And it was supposed to be relatively earlier in the year. That'd be cool if that game came out in early access on the Switch I would be very happy. I would like that quite a bit.
Yeah, me too.
Me too. Yeah, and then God, I do just want to call it Spoon Heaven Slay McAwesome. What's the Hollow Knight Silk Song? There we go. That's the real name of that game. Maybe something with that. Last time we saw that was at an Xbox show though, so who knows? And speaking of Xbox, hey, maybe Hi-Fi Rush is there, right?
Oh, yeah, that would classify under the partner showcase.
I mean,
you do that and then feature Sea of Thieves as well.
Possibly. I mean, circumstantial evidence. They lined up, they being Microsoft, their business update meeting for next week. They're sticking to that. It's like, even though they have this firestorm happening, like, why are they holding off on that business meeting update unless they have an agreement? Like, we're waiting until this all happens in the direct, and then we'll talk about it after the direct. Maybe. I mean, it also could just be that they still are taking time to craft their messaging, tinfoil hats and all when it comes to that. But that is a possibility here that Microsoft does show up in some significant way in the direct, and then they have their business meeting update right after that. That direct could happen next Wednesday, next Thursday, and then late next week we get Microsoft talking about those things.
Rob, I'm going to be so upset if they have this Nintendo Direct, this partner direct, and they let Phil Spencer do this, like the snap. If they let him do that, I'm going to be livid.
He's not earned that. He's definitely not earned that. Definitely. No. Let's see here. Okay. I mean, we have a lot of Nintendo questions still. When we get out of this, it will be full steam ahead on like, okay, the next time Nintendo really sits down to talk with us in a direct, they have to talk about hardware, and that probably will be true. But man, at this point, I'm like, God, Metroid Prime 4. Is it really gonna miss the Switch? I guess it is. I mean, Mike's usually right about those things, so I should have just believed him. But I wanted to believe. It could come out this year.
Why you do this?
Well, listen, I bet my hair this time. Did not bet my hair this time.
Okay. You bet my hair.
I bet your hair. That's right. Sorry to tell you that, Jan, by the way. But
no.
That's how it goes. All right, let's take a quick break. When we get back, we have a lot more to talk about, all after this. All right, getting back into it. The FTC isn't too happy with Microsoft's Activision Blizzard layoffs. This is from Nicole Carpenter at Polygon. Microsoft reneged on and promises it made in court during its Federal Trade Commission antitrust trial in 2023 by laying off 1,900 employees in late January. FTC lawyer Imad Abiyad filed a letter with the U.S. Court of Appeals for the Ninth Circuit on Wednesday, effectively telling on Microsoft. And he said in that documentation, this newly revealed information contradicts Microsoft's representations in this proceeding, the FTC lawyer wrote. Microsoft announced on January 15th that it was laying off 1,900 workers from its gaming division, around 8% of that part of the company. A large portion of those layoffs were at the newly acquired Activision Blizzard. The percentage of Activision Blizzard layoffs had not been made public, but at least 899 of that 1,900 worked out of Activision Blizzard's California offices, according to public records. As we move forward in 2024, the leadership of Microsoft Gaming and Activision Blizzard is committed to aligning to a strategy of making more money, basically, is what Phil said. And that means paying fewer people money. And that's the short version that I'm going with there. But the FTC lawyer cited a letter that said Microsoft's intention was to maintain the pre-merger status quo with its vertical acquisition of Activision, specifically contrasted with a horizontal merger where companies often eliminate redundancies. Abiyad's point is that Microsoft's stated plan was to vertically merge these two companies so that Activision would be its own thing and Microsoft would not really have any reason to be like, oh, well, we have redundancy here. We don't need all these people. That did change. Microsoft did, in its when it was talking about this, said there was an overlap, and some of the people that they laid off here were let go because of that overlap. At the same time, Microsoft has responded, and they are basically saying that these layoffs were already supposed to happen. In a letter forwarded to FGC, Microsoft's lawyers claim that Activision Blizzard was planning to make large-scale layoffs even if the acquisition hadn't gone ahead, noting that job cuts have been occurring across the industry as a whole. Consistent with broader trends in the gaming industry, Activision was already planning on eliminating a significant number of jobs while still operating as an independent company. The recent announcement thus cannot be attributed fully to the merger. In a separate statement, a Microsoft spokesperson told VGC, in continuing its opposition to the deal, the FTC ignores the reality that the deal itself has substantially changed. Since the FTC lost in court last July, Microsoft was required by the UK Competition Authority to restructure the acquisition globally, and therefore did not acquire the cloud streaming rights to Activision Blizzard games in the United States. Additionally, Sony and Microsoft signed a binding agreement to keep Call of Duty on PlayStation on even better terms than Sony had before. All right, let's just recap here real quick. Microsoft laid off 1,900 people, and some of those were seemingly due to redundancies. When Microsoft was in court with the FTC, they said that would be very unlikely because we're going to keep Activision Blizzard as its own, like, vertically standing thing over there, separate from Microsoft Gaming, even though we own it. They did seemingly go back on that, and Microsoft is now saying, well, we were going back on that because things changed because we had to make this agreement with the UK, and that is their argument. And two things: I believe them, and who gives a fuck? Like, you were in court, the whole world was like, you're going to look like the bad guys if you lay people off, and this is the problems with acquisitions. When you bring people together into one big thing, if the company experiences any trouble, even more people are going to lose their job than normal. Listen, the 8% is in line with the entire industry is laying off about 8% of their workers. So it isn't out of the ordinary. And I do believe Microsoft that whether the deal went through or not. But who cares? You have a ton of money. You could afford it. You could have avoided looking like you're just any other company. You said you weren't going to be like any other company in court repeatedly. And here we are. You're behaving just like any other company. So I like, all this talk is so cheap. Who cares? Right, Jan?
Yeah. Looking around and pointing everyone else is doing it does not fill me with any type of confidence moving forward. And It is not an excuse at all. But at the same time, hey, FTC, who knew that merging two giant companies would create a lot of redundancies? No matter what Microsoft was proposing or saying during that initial lead-up process with the FTC, these layoffs were going to happen. Who knows as to what scale? But
or even what timeline, right? What
timeline?
They could have pushed it off a little bit. Seems like they're doing it now though because everyone else is doing it, so we'll just get it over with. Yeah.
Yeah, and I don't see this being like the only round of layoffs, unfortunately, at a big company like Microsoft, especially after acquiring ABK and just maybe like a month, 2 months, 3 months down the line, just seeing how many more redundancies or where they can continue to cut costs just to appease shareholders and whatever financial projections they need to do. It sucks. It's garbo. It's terrible for everyone involved.
Yes. So continuing the recap, FTC is hearing or the FTC is taking this to an appeals court in California, I believe San Francisco. The court has not. Yes, the San Francisco Court of Appeals has not announced a decision yet. It's very unlikely that they will, based on this, get the deal unraveled. But that is what the FTC is going for and has been going for. They seem, as always, throughout this process, unfazed by people telling them, "Oh, this probably isn't going to work." They're like, "No, we're going to just try every single thing," and they've tried every single thing. And frankly, yeah, go for it. Microsoft said one thing at court, now they're doing something else. So at the very least, give them a hard time and drag them in public a little bit. Now, Activision is especially weird because in like 2022, they had about 10,000 employees, a little bit under that. And then by 2023, they had 13,000 employees or something like that, maybe even more. They just hired a ton of people in a year, all after it seemed like this deal was announced. So they just went on a crazy pandemic hiring spree. And so it's like they had a ton of people that just came into that company. And it's like, man, it kind of all goes back to just wild, unkempt leadership at Activision, torpedoing this deal in a sort of way. And then, but I go back to, so what? Microsoft can afford it. You said it. You should have stuck to it. If you're going to actually like try to talk that talk, walk the walk a little bit, and not just, oh, we got 2 months into this deal closing, now we're going to just pull the ripcord on layoffs right away. It just doesn't look good.
Does this also make Microsoft and Xbox sad? Is this also a hard decision to have to go back to the FTC and say like, sorry, you kind of misunderstood what we said?
Yeah, I mean, they should feel sad. I mean, at the very least, like, this is a parade of bad news in a company for its game division that is pretty accustomed to having parades of bad news. Like occasionally they break out of that and they have, here's a reason to feel good. Like when the deal closed, like people at Microsoft were feeling good. The fandom was feeling pretty good over there. And then it kind of like immediately starts evaporating and they're back into like, here's one bad news story. Here's another one. Here's another one. And now the company's making some changes and they aren't explaining it and everyone's feeling anxious. I don't know. It continues to feel like if you are looking at where to put your time as a gamer, Microsoft feels like more of a mess than ever. And stuff like this does not help that.
It's just baffling, Grubb, because I feel like for quite a while, it seemed like Xbox, Microsoft had it. At least it seemed like they had it all together, minus stuff like Redfall or Starfield. But they were willing to admit that those were stumbling blocks over whatever grander future that they were planning. And then, like you said, it's all cyclical because Microsoft winds up fumbling the bag and just like shooting themselves in the foot. At least in the eye of public perception. Again. This also just seems like terrible management across the board, especially hearing that from Activision to let's hire even more people that we may not be able to pay, but it's okay. We're not going to be in charge of the books soon. Yeah. Grossly irresponsible. And I don't think the people that got laid off are the ones that should be laid off, Grubb. It seems like the people that put the numbers together, they do the big maths or the pretend maths. I think they should be the ones that go, Grubb.
Yep, absolutely. I think that they will likely not see any sort of consequences for this because they will accurately be able to point to the rest of the industry laying off about the same number of people across the board. So it doesn't seem like something that's all that out of the ordinary. It turns out the entire video game industry is in a wild and broken state. And when forced to explain that, if it comes to a situation where they have to explain that in court, Microsoft's lawyers will be able to probably illustrate that picture for the judge or jury. But as is, I mean, I guess goes back to the point I was making about, like, I'm glad the FTC is poking them here. Just poke the bear a little bit. Just at the very least, you can make them look bad, make them feel bad, and make headlines paint Microsoft in a way that's like, no, these are cold-hearted business people making decisions that really don't stand by what they say, so don't fall under that spell going forward. And so there's value in that as well.
I don't know if you've seen this quote circulating around, Grubb, and it's not specifically towards video games, but on Dakota Johnson's press tour from Madame Web,
of course,
Madame Web,
yeah.
She lays out a very interesting quote where she says, "It's really fucking bleak in this industry. It is majorly disheartening. The people who run streaming platforms don't trust creative people or artists to know what's going to work, and that is just going to make us implode. It's really heartbreaking. It's just fucking so hard. It's so hard to get anything made." And you can apply that shit to video games 100%.
Oh yeah, we are deep down that well, maybe even further down than the streaming industry is. The guy that one of the people that was in, I think, Starfield, one of the voice actors mentioned recently that they had 3 of their games canceled very recently. So it's like that's what we're dealing with. We're dealing with people's work just like disappearing right before their very eyes, and that's across every publisher, I'm sure.
Yeah. Damn, I thought it was like a big deal that Batgirl or Batwoman, whatever movie that got shelved by WB, like, will never see the light of day. I haven't even thought about all of the games that have gone canceled, Grubb, that have probably had voice work done and mocap done. And that's stuff that those voice actors or some devs won't be able to put on their resume because
that's right.
It didn't come out.
That's right. It'll be just lost to like so many other things. And that's, losing job opportunities that you thought you were going to have, and then having the entire industry sort of close off to the possibility of anyone getting any extra work right now is going to be really rough for a lot of people. And yeah, again, kind of knocking at these companies and saying, that's you said you were going to do the opposite, is useful to an extent. All right, virtual currencies are fictions, Take-Two argues in microtransaction theft lawsuit. This is from Tom Ivan at VGC. We'll explain why they want you to believe that. It's true to an extent, but so are all currencies. Lawyers representing Take-Two have called virtual currencies fictions created by game publishers in response to a class action suit concerned with the company's handling of microtransactions. The suit accuses the NBA 2K, PGA Tour 2K, and WWE 2K publisher of stealing from players because it doesn't allow them to transfer virtual currencies from past series entries to new ones when they're released, GameFile reports. It calls Take-Two's approach unfair, illegal, and greedy, as virtual currency purchased with real money is lost when the game's servers are switched off, which plaintiffs argue is relatively quickly following the release of new game entries. By removing plaintiff and the class members' VC, defendants took and stole their personal property or fraudulently appropriated property that had been entrusted to the defendant. According to the suit, which was filed in federal court last November. VC is not plaintiff's property, Take-Two's lawyers responded last week in a request to dismiss the case that was spotted by GameFile. Instead, in-game VC are fictions created by game publishers, subject to the publisher's terms of service and user agreements. According to Take-Two's end-user license agreement, which players must agree to before using the software, virtual currency and virtual goods are strictly non-transferable. All purchases of VC and VG are final, and under no circumstances will such purchases be refundable, transferable, or exchangeable, it reads. Except as prohibited by applicable law, licensor has the absolute right to manage, regulate, control, modify, suspend, and or eliminate such VC and or VG as it sees fit in its sole discretion. So the argument basically here is we created our own company script. We can do with it whatever we want. And in fact, we made you agree to the fact that you're going to let us do with it whatever we want before we even let you play the game. So you've agreed to this, and we have to abide by it. Now, that, of course, has worked for a lot of companies for a very long time. And yet very often it's like, well, listen, you can't just be like, in the terms of service, we said we can legally murder you. There are limits to what you could put into a terms of service license agreement. And it seems like they are trying to go to a bit of an extreme of being like, hey, we got your money. We gave you the thing, and the thing that we said we'd give it to you. Just because you didn't use it doesn't mean you don't have it or whatever. And even when the server shut off, well, we told you that could happen one day. No transfers. Sorry, you should have spent it when you had the chance. My question, Jan, is how is it worth it to them to go to the lengths of fighting this and looking like such bastards instead of just letting people transfer it? Are they really going to lose out on that much money if people could transfer the $4 they have left over in the last game? I don't get it.
Again, I don't understand who are making these decisions, Grubb.
Yeah.
Who's responsible? Because it alienates your existing customer base, because now, puts a bad taste in their mouth, so they don't want to even participate in your specific ecosystem anymore. I know if I was like dumping a bunch of money into FIFA and then new game comes out, I can't move that balance over for whatever reason. I would not play the new game, or I would be very hesitant before I ever check out another 2K game or anything coming out of Take-Two. People spend a lot of money in these games.
Yes.
That you would think you just want to pacify and placate these people that are already in your ecosystem.
Right. You would think like the power of the market would solve this problem and be like, it is valuable to keep those consumers happy because they spend a lot of money on our thing. And so that will just solve it. It's like, well, clearly that's not happening. And they're going to great lengths to ensure that they keep those people's money without giving them more virtual goods, things that you've already made that just happen to be in the game. You just want them to buy more virtual currency again, so that but it's like even that, like, okay, I get like the math on paper. Well, they already bought that virtual currency. Don't let them use that and force them to make a new purchase so that we get even more money to buy this thing in this new game. It's like, of course, I see how that makes you more money, but I just don't think you're going to lose money in that transfer of the currency to the new game, because those people are probably like, well, now I got money. I'll be losing money if I don't spend more to buy this other new thing. It just feels like it makes so much sense to keep that momentum going. Now, obviously, there's overhead of ensuring that people can transfer their currency, and that probably is some work. But this is a software company; they could figure it out. I don't know, Jan.
I can't imagine that it would be super challenging to get that to work, though, right? Of like having,
I don't think so, but I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. It just seems so stupid. Stupid.
It's so, and like the arguing that they're fictions, like everything. I mean, the law against murder, also a fiction. We made that up, everybody. That's just something we made up.
We decided collectively it's not cool.
Yeah, we just decided collectively. The United States of America made up. That's not a real thing. We just that's a thing that we all agree upon. It's a fantasy. So that just a really weird argument to lead off with from Take-Two's lawyers. But there you go.
I'm not advocating for piracy or nefarious activities, but hey, I'm gonna assume it may be easier to rob a virtual bank rather than like a shoot bank, So like shake that shit loose from the tree there.
Yeah, just go get off Strauss Zelnick's Take-Two shares, and then just be like, those are fictions. That's made up. There's no rules. There might be some rules, Strauss. All right. GameStop ad promoting Microsoft Game Pass leads to more Xbox chaos. This is from Zach Swisen at Kotaku with a good headline there. A GameStop tweet promoting a demo day when folks can come in and play some games on Xbox consoles using, quote, Microsoft Game Pass has injected more chaos and controversy into the ongoing apocalyptic Xbox drama, set up by reports of exclusive games like Starfield coming to PS5. Currently affecting the console warriors and devoted fans, that's the drama there. And while the tweet and its promo images likely mean nothing, the reaction shows how jumpy some Xbox fans currently are. And kind of like, again, we'll recap that. GameStop put out a tweet that had some art that referred to Microsoft Game Pass instead of Xbox Game Pass. I think Wario64 just kind of retweeted that and just quote Microsoft Game Pass, and everyone was like, "Oh my God, they're getting rid of Xbox in Xbox Game Pass. That must be because they're getting rid of Xbox. We all got to freak out." And I just want to be like, "Hey, GameStop doesn't know what the hell they're doing. Everybody, this is just a little boo boo by GameStop." And I think a lot of people did realize that. And you could try to tell that to the people who are, as Zach points out, feeling jumpy, and they just aren't going to hear it. And that maybe is the real story here. It's just how jumpy that fandom is.
Grubb, who hurt these people?
Yeah.
Who hurt these people that they're so tied to this? I don't want to use this term. This may trigger some people, Grubb, but when did they become a bunch of snowflakes?
It is, I mean, very sensitive. That's how I would describe the scenario here. Is a lot of people being very much in their feelings, and this is the kind of like thing about being an adult, right? You got to put a lot of this loyalty to the side and recognize that when a company sweet talks you, they never mean what they say, and it's okay to believe in them. I have a lot of my enjoyment invested into Nintendo, but I do look at that company and I know what it is. It is a merciless money-making machine that would do anything to extract more value out of me. And it's successfully doing that constantly, mostly by keeping me pretty placated and giving me the things I want. But when the company fails to figure out how to do that, and then they have to shift gears because they aren't extracting enough value from you, don't be surprised when it's like you start to feel taken advantage of. That's literally the entire system. They are capitalizing on you in capitalism. And so, yeah, I'm not here to preach, even though I just did. If people are like, hey, I did spend a lot of money on this thing, and I do feel like I I had the rug pulled out from underneath me. Go ahead, complain. You should be criticizing this company.
Yeah.
Go to town. That's completely fair game. But I do urge you to maybe recognize that it shouldn't be too surprising in a lot of circumstances.
Take a critical glance and look at a mirror. Look at a mirror, folks. I'm not saying our Giant Bomb audience. They're a bunch of lovely, smart people. These folks heavily defending Xbox, Microsoft, and getting all up in arms and causing more chaos with every single headline that pops out. Y'all need to fucking chill.
Yep. Just
do more than touch grass.
Yeah, the grass is not going to be enough in a lot of cases. I do wonder if the Xbox brass has any regrets about sort of fomenting that audience a little bit. They've been very engaged with the heavily online Xbox community, and now it's sort of coming back to bite them a little bit. So
yeah. I hate to bring it to wrestling, but it now makes me think like, oh, they thought they were Cody this whole time, huh?
Yeah.
They thought they were Cody, but it turns out they're just Dwayne.
Marvel Spider-Man 2 is getting new game plus and new suits in March. It's from Eric Hiddleback-Furu at Game Reactor. It's been close to 2 months since Insomniac said they were delaying the Marvel Spider-Man 2 update that would bring new game plus to the game. They didn't want to give us a date back then, but only said to expect it in early 2024. Now we know exactly when that is. Insomniac revealed that the next big update for Marvel's Spider-Man 2 will arrive on the 7th of March. We're not told anything new about what's included in it, so we'll have to settle on the aforementioned and previously announced new game plus, and as well as replayable missions, new suits, and the option to change the time of day and tendril colors, which I think means
that's cool.
Yeah, listen, I want some different tendril colors.
Please.
And new suits. That's like almost the reason for me to want to get back in there a little bit. Jan, this is going to be the poll question for tomorrow. We'll definitely post it, but you going to jump back in for new game plus and Spider-Man 2?
I can't say that I will, Grubb.
Same.
And I'm thinking about this now. Most of the time, I often don't jump into a new game plus.
Yep.
Now that I'm thinking about it. Loved Alan Wake 2 from last year. I've yet to check out what new game plus is. And for me, a lot of the time, it's not just because of like time constraints of we have to play this new title, play that new title. It's more so where I have a limited amount of time. I know that there's probably new things that we're all exploring with New Game Plus, but I just don't have the time to go through the similar story beats over again.
Yep. And then Prominent Leaguer says that announced SEGA IP revivals are coming to the Switch successor. This is from My Nintendo News. By now, you're very likely aware of the news from Sega that Jet Set Radio, Shinobi, Golden Axe, Streets of Rage, and Crazy Taxi are all getting a new game. When the games were announced at the Game Awards in December of 2023, Sega didn't really say much about the games themselves. They didn't even mention what platforms they would be on. Well, a new rumor by prominent leaker MBKKSSTBHZ5.
No. Read it how you want to read it, Grubb.
Five. Thank you. May offer us a bit of insight into where the games are going to release. According to 5, the games will be coming to the next Nintendo hardware. Obviously, nothing about the matter has been officially announced yet, and there are just as many rumors about the next Nintendo consoles as there are with the games releasing on it. Nevertheless, if anything gets announced later on, we'll let you know. There's also, as part, like, kind of tangential to this, added to the list of games that might be coming from Sega in terms of revivals now includes Virtua Fighter. That to me, very good news. Love to hear that. I want us to be fully back into the fighting game renaissance. That would be really great. This makes sense, right?
Yeah, I was going to ask, would this include the rumored Persona 2 and Persona 4 remakes?
Ooh, I wonder if those are those are different initiatives, but I would assume that they are just making those for the Switch 2. In fact, I want to say that I think it's when we talked about that was part of the news story, that those were getting planned for the Switch successor. Right. But maybe I'm just making that up. But even that wasn't part of that story. Yeah, Jan, I assume that right now, if you're Sega, you're looking at these games and anything that is like, it's going to be pretty tough to get run on the Switch. Well, good news. By the time those games are ready, just put them out on the Switch successor. Sega's had a lot of, for almost immediately when they got out after the Dreamcast, they had a pretty good relationship of getting games on Nintendo platforms and seeing some success. That's been up and down a little bit over time, depending on how successful the Nintendo hardware was. But I think they are very ready to be there on day one for the Switch 2, even though it's going to be very difficult for the Switch 2 to match the Switch's success, like just flat out, because, Switch was such a surprise and everyone just had to have it. It's still going to be very successful and sell very well and probably make a lot of money for people who have games on there that strike that audience, especially in the early days. I think a lot of these games that have that IP recognition with a lot of longtime Nintendo fans / Sega fans, they really stand to benefit from being there early on in the first year or two of the Switch 2.
Definitely hardcore agree. I mostly asked that because of the overwhelming success that P3 Reload has had, selling like 1 million copies already. Insane for Persona.
Yeah. You want to know something, though? I was looking at this today. I was on the Steam store because I was like tracking down some of these games that are coming out. I was like, oh, Helldivers, making sure I have that. And I got a code to check out Penny's Big Breakaway. And then I was in the store and I just, this is like a number you can look at. The number of reviews for Persona 5 Reload, it was like 5,000 or something, whatever it was. Grand Blue Fantasy, the new RPG that came out like 2 days before, was already at like twice that number of reviews, if not more. It's like, oh man, it's always important to remember these games that come out of like mobile and other spaces and then like find their way into console and PC gaming are just as big, if not significantly bigger than the things I'm playing.
I was catching up with one of my good friends and I was asking like, hey, like, did you pick up Tekken 8? Cause he's a big fighting game head. And he told me like, yo, bro, I don't even have a PS5. Like I'm just playing mobile games on my phone. And then homie shows me like all the gotchas. I'm like, all right, like send me some links, dog. But I think it is quickly become an audience that the main gaming audience has not thought about. Oh no, Grubb, you know what? John Drake, if you're listening, Disney gotchas. Disney gotchas.
Have they not done Disney gotchas? They must have by now, right?
Give me that 5-star. Fuck, what's his name? Give me that 5-star Rebecca from Tailspin.
Okay, well, I didn't know we were going straight that direction, but fair enough.
I don't know why my mind went to Rebecca. I was trying to say Quackshot, but I said Rebecca.
Okay. That does it for the news. We have a poll question we'll get to here in a second. While I get that set up, excuse me, Jan, why don't you tell people what we have going on, where they can find you, all that good stuff?
You can find me here. I live here, basically. I've thought about, maybe doing some extra additional side content in terms of like, this isn't quite a video game, but I think it warrants a GB plays of sorts, perhaps.
Sure.
But look forward to later today, folks. Voicemail dump truck popping off. But before that, making sure all the best whistles and bells fire off. I don't know what metaphor I was going for there. We will have Catch Me If You Dan right before the voicemail dump truck today. Tomorrow, another episode of Game Mess Mornings. BCR popping off tomorrow, where we will be talking in depth about Suicide Squad. And Helldivers 2 is tentatively planned for UPF. Who knows? Maybe we could foam it up.
Yeah,
maybe
we could the same thing.
Maybe we could skull and bone.
Maybe we could skull and bone. Yeah, we got a lot. An embarrassment of weird riches to choose from.
Yes, and I also like. There's too many games because I want to check out Grand Blue Fantasy.
I was like, it's an action RPG. I probably won't like it. It's way too anime for me. And yet I'm like, oh, it kind of looks fun. It looks like a good time.
Yeah. We were just talking about how the mobile market has seeped into console culture, and I feel like that's why it's not that Stellar Blade is an existing IP somewhere else, but I feel like it taps into that same brain space that Stellar Blade might be a runaway success with.
I think Stellar Blade's going to be
community.
very successful. I do think that. I mean, as long as it's a decent game. Like if it's as good as Bayonetta 3, I bet it does way better than Bayonetta 3. Yeah,
I think you're right.
Yep. Jim, we were going to play some Steam Next Fest demos. Do you still want to try to make that happen today? Or because I saw you played some of that poker game Balatro on stream before we did a show the other day.
I just don't know if we got time, Grubb.
I don't just thinking. Yeah, we have a lot going on, everybody. I would love to make something like that happen, but we'll see. We'll see, everybody. Okay, poll question. Which Capcom franchise would you want them to bring back the most? 14% said Darkstalkers. 15% said Onimusha. 19% said Dead Rising. 20% said Okami. And 33% said Dino Crisis. And I bet those Dino Crisis fans are going to be in luck. I bet that's actually something that is really going to happen probably pretty soon.
Dinosaurs are real hot.
Dinosaurs are hot.
Yeah. And I mean, just from like an attraction standpoint, they just look so
pretty.
cool.
The skincare routine off the charts.
You put sunglasses on a dinosaur, they're even cooler.
Shake those tail feathers. They got tail feathers now, so they can do that.
I'm having a crisis right now over these dinos.
Do you think Mike ever gets another Mega Man game? A real one?
I feel like you have to.
They have to, right?
Like you have to.
At a certain point, just throw the man a bone.
The Blue Bomber is too popular of a character. Like he is associated with Capcom as far as I'm concerned. And like a Servbot, right? Like I love those little freaks.
Agreed. I want to see more.
Grubb. Here's what we do. Capcom, get your checkbook out. All right. We just make Mario versus Rabbids, but Mega Man versus Rabbids, and then we have the Servbots fight with the Rabbids. That's what we do. Or let's just put the Servbots in overalls and give them goggles. They're basically minions.
Well, okay. Well, if we're gonna go that route, why not just do Mega Man versus Minions, so that the Rabbids can stay over with Mario, and then Mega Man goes with the Minions as he deserves.
I don't want to think about what power Mega Man would inherit from the Rabbids.
Just butt cheeks and loving bananas. Minions are. I've never seen a Gru or a Minion. I've never seen any of those movies, Jan.
I think the gimmicks would legitimately like Despicable Me. Also, Despicable Me, fantastic soundtracks for all of the movies that they've had.
All right, well, I'll make it happen. In the meantime, I'm just going to continue enjoying the fact that Mike is freaking out in chat that you said that the Rabbids should go with Mega Man. He's deeply upset with you, and I love that. That's very good. And then also, new poll question: are you going to go back to Spider-Man 2 for New Game Plus? I will put that on the screen as I click the no button, just like many of you already have. But we'll discuss the results of that poll tomorrow on Game Mess Mornings here on Giant Bomb for Dregs Day, which I should be doing with Tam. Looking forward to that. Be sure to tune in. That'll be 11 a.m. Eastern, 8 a.m. Pacific here on Giant Bomb. Jan, thank you so much for spending today talking with me about video games, man. I really appreciate it.
It's my favorite way to start a Thursday a couple hours later.
And you are the best audience in gaming. Until next time, have a good one. Take care of yourself, and goodbye. Fade to black.